Welcome to another edition of the Gruber Morning Show, sponsored by the Gruber Companies. Exciting new Tesla feature released.
Has Lucid been delisted from the NASDAQ?
Ford is cutting F-150 production.
And layoffs at Rivian, what does that mean?
I'm Pete Gruber.
I'm Mark Schaffner.
These and other stories on the Gruber Morning Show. The background behind us before we get started, by the way, is another AI-generated image, and the prompt for this one was, give us a futuristic news studio with warm colors, and it did not disappoint.
Oh, that's a fantastic one. The warm colors, all the yellows and the brightness. I really like how it looks. And this one, to me, looks a little more like a news studio as opposed to an open living room or something, because you have all your chairs on the one side and you could see cameras. You could just imagine cameras just off the screen.
It's always a surprise, too. You know, we are beginning to integrate AI all throughout our companies here. And each week, it seems like we're reaching new milestones. It's definitely becoming a large part of our operations. For those of you that are coming in, the audience, feel free to tell us where you're coming in from. This is collaborative, so if you're taking issue with something we've said, you've got something to add, please feel free to do so. We've got our first YouTube visitor, Ramon Hurt. He says, good morning, guys. Good morning to you as well,
Good morning, Ramon. Good to have you back.
So one of the things that made the headlines this week was the delisting of Lucid Motors. And Mark, you're a financial guy. Tell us a little bit about what the implications are and what this means.
Yeah, the basics of the story is that the NASDAQ 100 is a group of the 100 most influential companies on the NASDAQ index. The group at NASDAQ will take every 6 months and do a review of the companies that are on the NASDAQ 100. And for companies that basically have lost their influence over the stock index, they'll be removed. Mm-hmm. Now, this is something that happens every 6 months. It doesn't mean that Lucid has been completely removed from the NASDAQ stock exchange, but Lucid has been removed from the NASDAQ 100 list. I did a little bit of looking behind the scenes for this NASDAQ 100 list and found that companies that get removed from the NASDAQ 100 actually end up performing a little bit better stock-wise in the first 6 months after being removed from the listing.
What is the reason for that?
It appears that companies that don't have quite that level of analyst all of the analyst scrutiny and all the extra press and everything that comes with the prestige of being on the NASDAQ 100 tend to spend more time just getting down to business and doing business and less time worrying about what everybody thinks about what they're doing for business.
Right. Okay, good point.
So their stock tends to perform slightly better. Over about a year, it kind of evens out. But from a day-to-day business standpoint, this action really has no impact on Lucid whatsoever.
You know, that seems to make sense because the article continues that they're in good company because other companies were removed. eBay was removed. Zoom, JD.com, I don't know who that is, Inc., but those will also be removed. The ones that were added were DoorDash, CDW Corporation, and Coca-Cola Euro-Pacific Partners will be added. Now, that's not negating the fact that Lucid this year has been down 34%, or the stock valuation.
Right.
So that's a pretty tough hit, and nearly 31% decline just in the last 6 months.
Yeah, Lucid has been, they've been struggling. They've been struggling with production. They finally lowered their guidance from 10,000 EVs, which they had not done at the end of the third quarter. They said, yeah, we're probably going to just do 8,000 EVs this year. And that also has had a drag on their stock price, which is, and it's the dragging stock price. It's the lack of sales. Those types of things are what lead a company to lose their influence in the NASDAQ as a member of the NASDAQ index, and then eventually be removed from the NASDAQ 100.
And I think what irritates investors or the public at large regarding Lucid is the wage, Peter Rawlinson's wage. He is currently the highest paid auto CEO in 2022 with a $379 million compensation package. Now, obviously, this isn't a paycheck that he receives every week. These are stock options. These are, future payouts. And there isn't much they can do to get rid of that because this was all set in stone some time ago, years ago, actually.
Well, my understanding was that he received stock options back in 2020 and 2021. He exercised those stock options in 2022 when Lucid stock was trading at about $60 a share. Very shortly after they went public, he exercised all his options, and it looked like he had this huge mammoth payday as a result, even though Lucid as a company was losing money hand over fist.
Right.
And so it wasn't really cash out of their pockets. It was simply that he was able to be virtually given a huge equity stake in the company.
Right. Got a bunch of people joining us. YouTube, Nolver53 is here with us this morning. Good morning, he says. It looks like Niels is with us. Did you mention Saturn in the image request? No, but that would
No, we
cool.
didn't, but you look at that light, it kind of looks like Saturn and its rings.
Yeah, very cool. Instagram, Prashant Son I889. Hi, can you read my chats? Yes, we're reading your question or your comment clearly.
Yes, and for all members, we have our support team over here. We've got Cass, we've got Jesse, Richard, and Aaron, and they help us by helping to curate the questions. They put the chats up for us to read, so we're not having to try to read and figure things out as we go. They're a wonderful help, but that means that not necessarily every question gets through to us.
Mm-hmm. And YouTube, Ramon Hurt says, I feel bad for Corey, talking about Corey. What was Corey's last name now? Steuben, I think. Ex-Munro and Associates. Was there many, many years, and he joined Lucid in a technical role. I think it was engineering manager or something, or director of engineering. What Ramon is saying is, I feel bad for Corey. He's dealing with Lucid while Sandy is doing deep dives on the Cybertruck. So maybe Corey would have had some fun with Sandy out at this Cybertruck reveal.
Oh, I'm sure he would have just absolutely loved doing that. At the same time, I'm not sure if I feel bad for Corey or not. Maybe he's got a great job.
Well, he did have to move to California, though. So that's
well, okay.
So you can feel bad for him a little bit.
I could definitely feel bad for him a little bit there.
You know, the other thing that makes this a significant bit of news is the same day or the day after, Lucid announced the departure of their CFO, Sherry House. And, the reasons given were is that she is pursuing other opportunities. Well, I kind of weighed in on this, and I can safely tell you that being in this business 40 years, or being in business 40 years, the real reasons that people leave usually do not emerge. There are things like non-disclosure agreements, NDAs, that prevent both parties from talking, non-compete agreements, and other restrictive covenants. It could have been incompetence. Maybe somebody didn't respond to a NASDAQ refiling, and that's why they were delisted. It could have been harassment, problems that were settled out of court, sensitive information, dishonesty with someone's work. Do you remember the Sam Altman issue just a few weeks ago?
Pete,
yeah.
Sorry, real quick, I just want to interject because we have a lot of people on Instagram, more than usual. You guys can go to our other platforms if you want to see any of the images or the background. We're also on TikTok, YouTube, Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, a bunch of other places where you can see the background.
Thanks for interjecting.
Thank you.
Yeah, our Instagram viewers still are seeing nothing but green screen. And again, if you want the full experience, YouTube is probably one of the best ones. And we post images behind us here from time to time, which you'll then also be able to see.
Right.
So continuing with the real reasons that people leave companies, especially at the executive level, the information is usually very filtered and, not the real reason. Some of the other things that come into play is they left for personal reasons. There are a host of things that happen in people's personal lives that oftentimes reduces their effectiveness on the job. temporarily or sometimes permanently. And then finally, addiction issues. Now, I'm not pointing the finger at any one of these and saying this is why Sherry House left. She may actually have left because she found a better opportunity somewhere else.
Yeah, that's possible as well. And what happens is that causes ripple effects. Because the speak here of pursuing additional opportunities it's code word to the people on Wall Street as well that says, oh, we're not going to hear why she left.
Right.
And that's exactly how they interpret it. And they also take the time then to beat down the stock because they're like, oh my gosh, one of the senior leaderships has just left the company. Stock was down almost 10% as of this morning on Lucid.
Yeah, I saw that.
And so, stock prices are down. It's going to ripple a little bit. There's a lot of fear, uncertainty, and doubt. She's one of the senior members of the leadership team, even though her assistant has already stepped up to become the interim CFO. It's hard to tell what's going to happen, and it'll be a few weeks at least. At least it was good to hear that she's going to help with the transition, and she'll be around to the end of the year.
Correct. Yes. All right, got a bunch more people chiming in. YouTube, Peter L., he says, NASDAQ 100 is based on market cap. With share prices reaching all-time lows this half, it had to happen. Not necessarily bad, as they can re-enter if they perform.
Peter, you're largely right. When I did my research, I found that market cap was the largest reason for this, but it was not the only reason. There are some other reasons as well, but they were pretty minor.
Yeah. YouTube, RC Robinson-San says, I wonder why he left Monroe. We're talking about Corey Steuben again. Oh, well, upvoted. It was a well-kept secret. And again, like I said just a few minutes ago, the real reasons for people leaving is usually not revealed. It is personal, it's private, and it's not for the general public.
Yep. On YouTube, Nova53 is joining us today. Good morning. He says, I used to think the Cybertruck was affordable at that original $39,000 projection. I'm hoping the price will come down as time goes on.
A lot of people are, yes.
Yeah, a lot of people definitely are.
Facebook, Amin Ben Aker says, hello. Well, greetings.
Hello,
Thanks for
welcome.
joining us from Facebook. Ramon Hertz says, I miss Corey. He was a good counter to Sandy at times. Oh, I love this one time. They were on site at some event. I think it was the shareholders meeting, Tesla shareholder meeting. And no, Comdex, or up in Vegas.
Okay.
But anyway, they're both standing there in front of the camera, and Corey was a very polished, professional, articulate type member of that duo.
Which is what Corey was, yeah.
Yeah, and Sandy was a bit more earthy, And at one point, Sandy was discussing something that they had seen, and he says, yeah, man, that was a real shit show. And I remember Corey just looked over at him like, can he say that?
As I think Jesse is looking over at you right now.
Right. They made a good team, though. You're absolutely right. They compensated for each other's strengths and weaknesses well. And the Monroe team seems to be they're not skipping a beat. I mean, he had an interview, another one with Elon, and then not only Elon, but some of the VPs, the whole team. Yeah, Franz von Holzhausen,
whole production team of the Cybertruck.
Yeah.
Wow, that's quite the interview he was able to get on that one then.
Absolutely, yes. So more power to them both. Hope Corey's doing well at Lucid, and he can certainly have an impact there as well.
PYG KLB on YouTube tells us, good morning from sunny Western Oregon. And then he continues and says, Corey's leaving was very well kept.
Yeah.
It definitely was. I met him at the Tesla takeover in San Luis Obispo at the end of July, and I didn't suspect a thing.
Yeah.
It was very well kept. It was really a surprise.
I think it was literally a couple days after that event.
Was it?
It was within the next.
Was.
I think they were at the event that weekend, and then that Monday he said he was leaving.
Mm-hmm. We did a podcast actually with Sandy just a few weeks after that, and we usually try to discuss the agenda, what the talking points are. And we asked, can we say anything about Corey? And at that point in time, they were unwilling to, discuss that in any way, shape, or form.
Yeah.
YouTube, Brian Silver, if Lucid fails, their tech will live on. Good point, because they've got some excellent technology in their vehicles. Tesla might be able to pick up some great talent and some patents. We just did a short video on this. Lucid topic is definitely a popular one because so many people are interested. But again, our take on this was with the heavy involvement from the Saudis, we just can't imagine that the Saudis, who now have a second act, would allow something like this to fail without continuing to prop it up. And they certainly have the financial wherewithal to do so. They're not like fickle investors that want to see ROI within a few months or they're out.
Right.
These guys are in it for the long haul. They have to be,
I think if worst came to worst, what would happen is that the Saudi investment fund would take Lucid private.
Exactly, yes.
And then they would just let it continue on as a private enterprise until Lucid got everything ironed out, all the kinks ironed out, everything going, and then they would consider taking it public again in the future. I just don't think it's going to happen that way.
Yeah, there are some very, very talented people at Lucid. And, from a technical standpoint, I have total confidence that they will continue to be able to create product that the EV revolution needs and be at the top of the heap in many ways.
Yes.
I think Jesse's got something.
Yeah, even though we may have just done a rant that was a little contrary to that statement, but I think the rant had some good info in it, just basically saying, they are the same thing. They're in it for the long haul, but it's going to be rough.
And the message was, Lucid, get your act together, and it's okay to do some staff changes. Maybe we need a different CFO or a different CEO. Some of these, we all have very unique talents and strengths. And if it's technical, let's get a CEO type individual in there.
If I could give Lucid one piece of advice.
Yeah.
Let Peter Rawlinson stay on as the chairman of the board of directors, fire him as CEO, and get a salesperson as a CEO.
There you go. Yeah.
Because Lucid's biggest problem is not the engineering. They've got the best car in the world as far as the EV goes. And that says a lot because there are some good ones out there. But they don't know how to sell their cars.
Yeah. Yeah, good point.
And if they were to get a salesperson in as a CEO, kind of like Elon has become a salesperson for Tesla, I think Lucid would just take off. And
listen and respond to the market.
Yes.
Make cars that people want.
Yes.
But anyway, those are our 2 cents, and we've got a bunch more streaming in here. YouTube, Brian Silver. If Lucid, we already did that. If Lucid fails, their tech will live on. Godwin Apuli from YouTube. Watching from Uganda. I like your content. Well, thank you. Oh, they changed it to Facebook. Okay.
Thank you. And then Ramon Hurt on YouTube says, I'm really loving your rants, Pete. You use very interesting analogies.
They're fun to do. They're brief. We were going to talk about those a little bit later. Those of you interested, if you've got, 3 minutes or so, maybe even 5, go to our YouTube channel, Gruber Motors, and there are probably 20 or 30 of them out there now. And the basic formula for creating these are things that irritate me. And once I find something, we develop a script and we have some cool analogies. Our social media team, I have to give a shout out to them. They're the ones that insert all of this great B-roll. And oftentimes you'll see the transitions between B-roll and my narrative. It's just flawless. Our guys are getting better and better at this.
Yeah, they definitely are.
They are entertaining, they're informative, and like George Carlin, they kick in or force you to do some critical thinking, which is badly needed, I think, on this planet at this point in time.
These ones have been a little bit more like it says in the title, rant-based, kind of opinion-based. The ones that you're working on now, though, are going to be more of the factual breaking down of companies. So we have another series coming out in addition to that.
We do. And, both myself and Mark actually have already dabbled in that when we had
Right.
that last Lucid financial update a few months ago, and the whole world was in a tizzy. Mark analyzed it and came up with some background information that really showed there was some misinformation being circulated about the financials at that time. So that's our goal, is to educate, edify, entertain, and, hopefully become an important part of your social media experience.
Right. YouTube, PYGKLB says, Saudis take Lucid private at 420.
Have I heard that before?
I think we've heard that one before.
And funding is secured?
Yes.
It would be with the Saudi investment fund, right?
Yeah, that would not be the first time we've heard a CEO say, I've had funding secured to take us private.
Yes. YouTube, Niels is back. He says 30 listeners and 1 like. Okay. So we're, is that more than we usually get, guys?
You know,
He
that's
needs to refresh. We're at 9 likes now.
Okay.
okay. It's probably less, but it's a good time to say, if you like our podcast, say so.
Yeah.
Hit that like button. We have one person who likes to respond, Crunch to Grace Hopper, that says, smash that thumb.
Mm-hmm. YouTube, Brian Silver says sales. He's talking about Lucid. Sales isn't the problem. Producing profitability is. And I would go a step further and say maybe people don't want $120,000 cars at this point,
Yeah, it's profitability starts with revenue.
Mm-hmm.
There are a lot of things that go into profitability, but it starts with revenue. And if you're only producing $150 or $160 million per quarter, and you've invested $10 billion to get $150 million back per quarter, you're not going to be profitable.
And if you're listening to what the population wants, you then build up your revenue stream, you build up profitability, and then you can move into niche vehicles.
Right.
There's always going to be a market for the luxury car crowd, but it's certainly not everyone. It's a small subset. I bought a Dodge Viper from Dodge many years ago, and Dodge had a whole host of other vehicles that were supporting the company. I don't think the Viper ever became profitable. It was a niche vehicle, 200-mile-an-hour car, all kinds of horsepower and, 2-seater, that type of thing.
It was the kind of thing that the Dodge brothers would have wanted to put together. They didn't
Right.
care about profitability to them as much as they cared about having something that was just really, really cool.
But they did it after they were profitable and after they had an income
Yes.
stream. And that's the key difference.
That's why I'm so excited about the Gravity,
Yeah.
because
You think that's the car, huh?
I think it's going to address a lot of these profitability issues. If it comes out and has the overall kind of quality that the Lucid Air has had, every EV maker has had build issues, little, door panel issues, I guess you could call it. And Lucid's not immune from that. But they're going from a sedan market that has a market cap of about $15 billion to the crossover SUV market, which is typically a higher priced car anyway.
Mm-hmm.
And they're leaving their price at the low end of what they want to produce cars for. So they're going to fit the market better. And it's a $320 billion a year market.
Much larger.
So it's so much larger. I have high hopes for that.
All right, we've got another headline here. Rivian lays off around 20 battery cell development workers. Sounded pretty ominous. I'm not even sure how the market reacted. I should have checked it that day. But the backstory is that they've got a factory in Normal, Illinois, and the 20 people were relieved of their duties there, including the company's head of cell engineering. Victor Prajapati, okay, I think I pronounced that correctly.
Better than me.
Was part of the layoffs. Actually, Prajapati was hired by Rivian in 2020 after working as senior manager of cell manufacturing engineering at Tesla. He was known for developing cell manufacturing there, and his role at Rivian was expected to be similar. Despite the layoffs, Rivian reportedly still plans to work with the Korean or the Korean supplier and partner Samsung for its battery packs. The layoffs will effectively place a pause on their in-house development plans. Now, if you read between the line here, maybe the Samsung product is quite sufficient and they don't need any more R&D to try to improve that product. That's kind of what I would read into this.
Yeah, that is what I would as well. Rivian doesn't have to be exactly like Tesla.
Right.
Tesla's going out and making their own batteries from scratch, building the cells, putting the cells into the pack, and building the packs. Not everybody has to do that.
Right. Right. Outsourcing is a wonderful way to cut some costs and get high quality product.
Absolutely.
Because other companies that might have reached the scale of economies well before you did have the R&D in place, and it would be less expensive.
Yeah, all you have to do is take advantage of all of their R&D investment.
Exactly. So this news also comes just a month after Rivian was approved to construct a $5 billion plant in Georgia for its second generation R2 line. So it doesn't sound like any financial problem. And if you really want to put this in perspective, 20 people out of an employee count of 14,122 as of December 1st, 2022. And the number of employees this year increased by 3,700 or 35.5% compared to 2021.
Okay.
2022. It is a 0.0014% decline in employees, virtually inconsequential.
Yeah.
But yet this kind of stuff makes the headlines and people read into it and it can affect the market and, all of that.
And all that tells me is it looks like Rivian is just really trying to focus on building the R2. They're happy with their battery tech to the point that they feel confident they can move forward without these 20 people.
Right.
And so my speculation is simply that they're gonna get outside expertise. We talk about Samsung. They'll probably get some engineers from Samsung to help them, and they're going to be comfortable with the current tech, and they're just going to focus on that R2 build out. They really have high hopes for that because Rivian is saying that the R2 will be their $40,000 ice killer.
Well, we got some comments. PYG KLB said Lucid would be better with a manufacturing engineer for CEO.
Possibly. Right now, Peter Rawlinson is a development engineer, not so much a manufacturing process engineer.
And you see Peter get up there, you get a whiteboard behind him, and this is his element. He loves to explain the technology and a great trainer. And so I'm sure there are other roles for Peter if he were to step aside and let someone else take that CEO role.
By all means. And there are plenty of CEOs that have been in the marketplace in running companies, even remaining as CEO, but they hand the reins of the public exposure to somebody else,
right,
who is a more of a public exposure expert.
As a PR department.
Yeah.
Yeah, there you go. Then it looks like Niels is clarifying something. He says, get to the button. The one like was me. I pressed it before the show started, though. Yeah, so give us a like and we'll feel validated. That's actually one of my rants is how our life has really changed now. You don't just go have a meal anymore. You have to take a picture of your food and then send it to your friends before you eat it.
Oh, yes.
All right, YouTube, RC Robinson San says, I see 14 likes, okay. Ramon Hurt says, Lucid is like Neo. They make good cars, but their business models are bad, and they aren't lean businesses.
I don't know as much about Neo as I do about Lucid. Would not be surprised if Lucid is not lean yet. That is a very specific terminology for manufacturing methods. And I think both companies probably could stand to improve in those areas.
You want to get Robinson-san?
Yeah, YouTube. RC Robinson-san says, what tech did Lucid over what everyone else has currently? Is it just faster motors? So RC Robinson-san is asking, what's better about Lucid?
What's better? What we hear from people that own them. And we have one in town here, actually, that had a Model S and then went to the Lucid, the Lucid Air, I think. It's more luxurious on the inside. The look and feel and, the comfort level in the seats. And I've also heard that they feel that it is a better built car than the Teslas. Reliability, no one's really weighing in, or at least that I've heard. But yeah, overall, the experience seems to be more favorable. I haven't heard anyone say, I wish I had my Model S again because this Lucid is a pile of junk.
Right. The motor is really what makes the headlines. It's roughly a third the size of the Tesla motor, and yet it puts out more horsepower than the Tesla motor. So for the weight to horsepower ratio, it's the best motor that's ever been built in the history of automobiles in that particular performance metric. But the battery technology is no slouch for Lucid either. My understanding is that their batteries are built incredibly so that they are incredibly efficient. These cars that are running dual motor, 700 horsepower, are also running an average of close to 4 miles per kilowatt, which is 250 watt hours per mile, which is better than efficiency-wise anything that Tesla has to offer, other than maybe it's a single rear wheel model.
Interesting. Okay, Ramon from YouTube says, I mean lean as in strict with their spending. All right, frugal.
Oh, okay.
They waste a lot of money when they aren't making any.
That is, to me, the problem with engineers.
Good point.
We had an engineer here when we were very first getting Gruber Motors started who wanted to develop our own custom battery tech. And I still remember you and I having a conversation where he went straight to you to ask for at least $1 million to build out a new business in battery tech. And we're like, yeah, we don't do that.
We need to see ROI before we invest at that level.
Yeah. And the guy was an engineer. He wasn't thinking about the sales side. He was trying to make a wonderful widget and had not even thought about if anyone would want that wonderful widget.
Right.
And I see some of that happening with Lucid.
In a strong engineering company, that's probably something that management has to deal with and fight all the time.
Yes.
YouTube, Ramon Hurd is talking about NIO is a Chinese company that builds NIO houses and wastes money with battery swapping stations. I agree with you there, Ramon.
Oh, yeah.
The battery swapping, it just doesn't make any economic sense. And for those of you interested, unfamiliar with it, there are some videos out there on YouTube about battery swapping. There's one in Norway, for example. One of our fellow influencers drove into one of these swapping stations in the middle of winter. And, as an engineering mind looking at the technology, it's just fraught with all kinds of issues. You got slush, ice, snow, cold weather, hydraulics. You've got, wet water. And they've got a charging station right outside the swapping station, which by the time they got done probably would have been faster, especially if you go into queue and you have to wait for your turn to get your battery swapped.
Exactly. I understand why Neil took this route. I don't agree with it, but in China and Hong Kong, people tend to either not own cars or they don't have the same sense of ownership that we have. And they don't have the infrastructure or facilities to be able to put battery charging out everywhere that the cars need to be. In fact, they just don't have the room. So it's easier to go out toward the edge of the city, go drop off your battery and get a new one, come back into town, than it is to try to have battery charging stations put into apartment houses and things like that they're doing here.
So another news item, and this one is a bit sarcastic, but it's funny as heck. And here's the headline. New Tesla update lets you make your horn lock sound like a screaming goat because that's what the world needs now. So anyway, it turns out that, yes, this is exactly what Tesla is now offering. And I don't know if this is part of their year-end Easter egg package, but I can tell you from personal experience, my wife just swapped her Model S to a model that actually has some expanded features. And one of them was very favorably received by her and my 3 granddaughters in the car as well, which is the fart feature.
Yeah, I knew you were going to say that.
And for a good 20 minutes or so, I heard from my daughter that there was just constant laughing, giggling, side-splitting laughing taking place. You know, usually a joke is only funny once, right? It gets trite after the 3rd, 4th, 5th time.
Oh, yes.
But I guarantee you, this fart sound in that car, it tells me that Elon definitely has kids and appreciates what their humor is. Because this was a huge, So you were saying something about the side benefit of something like this.
Oh, yes. To start with, yes, this is part of their 2023 holiday update. It's one of several features. It has become one of their most popular features for the 2023 update. The other main side thing, though, is I don't think anybody's going to want to buy a Tesla because now the horn sounds like a goat when you lock the car.
Right.
A screaming goat, not just a goat, a screaming goat.
Right.
But the positive press that this article and all of the other hundreds of articles that are like it have done for Tesla is probably comparable to all of the money that all of the automakers are spending on all of their Christmas holiday advertising campaigns.
Good point. Yes.
And Tesla's getting all this wonderful advertising and marketing exposure for free.
And of course, people ask all the time, how does Tesla operate without a well-defined PR department? It's things like this.
It's things like this. And for the consumer who chuckles about the fart sounds or chuckles about the screaming goat horn or something like that, they'll say, yeah, okay, that's funny. I'm not going to get that car. 6 months from now, they don't understand exactly why they have such a favorable view of Tesla, but they do.
Mm-hmm. Good point.
And that is psychological. It absolutely happens.
By the way, one of our rant videos, and I don't think it's released yet, is it, guys? The one about the screaming goat? It's not. Okay, but it will be within the next day or two. Look for it on Gruber Motors. We've got a really funny take on this, and I'm doing a rant about the goat sounds, the fart sounds in the car and all that, and I think you'll find it entertaining.
Definitely will. Let's see. Instagram, Mandan Powell 143 says, hi, sir. And then
Welcome.
on YouTube, Niels asks, Lucid has a unique battery pack design too. No? Weren't they picked apart by Monroe? Yes, Lucid does have a very unique battery pack design. Yes, it was, along with the motor and the rest of the powertrain, picked apart by Sandy Monroe. And Sandy Monroe's conclusion in a brief sentence was, this is the best or most well-engineered product that I've ever seen on an electric vehicle.
Mm-hmm. Right. YouTube, Herbert from Düsseldorf, Germany. Herbert Booter is joining us. He says, Neo, you can also charge in high speed. No need to always find a swapping station. So you can go to charging stations. True. By the way, we didn't mention this, but at 11 o'clock today, we're switching over to the Tesla Roadster podcast, which will also be about an hour or so podcast, where we cover a lot of the updates and developments regarding the Tesla Roadster. And the reason that that Herbert jogged my memory is because he is a Roadster owner in Germany. So stay tuned for those of you interested in continuing to talk about Tesla and focusing on the Tesla Roadster.
Yeah, that's coming up in about 22 minutes or so.
Yes.
Robert North on Facebook says, Tesla's supercharging and plug is where it's at. Mm-hmm. The Cybertruck is a joke. A two-wheel drive Tesla El Camino would sell like crazy. Thoughts?
El Camino. Yeah, that kind of revolutionized the cross between a muscle car and a pickup truck. I do not have a crystal ball when it comes to the Cybertruck. Perfectly honest, when it first was released and I saw Elon up on stage and they rolled out the Cybertruck, I thought for sure that it was a joke and they were going to bring out the real vehicle at some point, and it was a gag. It was an opener. And then after Franz threw some steel balls at the window, I began to realize, no, they're quite serious about this. Now, I've warmed up to it since then, primarily because of the crazy acceptance. It seems like the whole world at this point is focused on a Cybertruck. And it's almost as if Tesla can do no wrong. They don't come out with models that are, the Model X.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
The gold wing doors on the Model X that, they raise too high. They hit the garage ceiling unless you have a
Right.
tall garage. And
All right, so I take that back. They sometimes they have a flop as well, but the Cybertruck, it's become an institution. We've got a couple of those rant videos out there that are doing extremely well, and one of the best ones is Cybertruck shows up at a construction site. Now what?
yeah,
I think you'll enjoy that one.
I don't know if it's an El Camino style car would sell really well. I mean, think about it. You've got a model, whether it's a Model 3 or a Model S front, they're pretty similar. But if you were to cut off right behind those front seats and turn that into a pickup truck bed,
Yeah,
that would be kind of weird.
yeah, and maybe successful. We don't know.
We don't know.
But the aftermarket guys, this is the type of thing that they love doing. So I'm surprised that no one's taken a Model S and chopped it and made it into a, what would the name for it be? You could probably play with that. Remember the Testa or the Tesla Rosa?
Yes,
The Tesla
I
Rosa?
do.
Yeah.
I do.
There was someone who chopped their Model 3 into a truck, and they called it the Truckla.
Oh, you're right. Yes. Yeah, it was the girl on YouTube. That was successful, yeah. Although nobody went into production shortly thereafter, so maybe it wasn't that successful. Brian Silver from YouTube, Christmas update. The blind spot camera visual alert is going to be great. Yeah, I agree with you. Anytime you can improve safety by giving you more visual. I was test driving a Tesla Roadster until yesterday, and you know how people like to put those convex mirrors over the existing side view mirrors?
Yes.
This particular one actually created a safety issue because it blocked what you were supposed to be seeing. And it was too small to see from, 4 or 5 feet away over on the driver's side. So, anytime you can improve visibility, it's going to reduce accidents.
I agree about the blind spot camera visual alert, as well as good as it's going to be. That's one of the safety features that our Volvo has. We have an XC40 Recharge, and it has that blind spot camera alert. And that's a really nice safety feature. It has saved me from drifting into somebody else's lane where there's a car right there. And of course, then my wife yells at me and all that fun stuff.
Right. Can we bring up a picture, guys? It's called Citron. And this was really interesting because it turns out that the Cybertruck design pre-existed Tesla. And this is a 1980 Citroen Heron concept car. And the question is, was this the original Cybertruck? Well, it sure looks like it could have been. And you always wonder, and we don't get the backstories often. What was Franz von Holzhausen's team thinking, and what was the inspiration for this angular design on the Cybertruck? Was he cooking one night and used his cheese grater and decided, this would be a cool design for a truck? Or was he aware of the Citroen Karin concept car? We'll never know unless he comes on our interview and we can ask him those questions.
That's right.
We're looking forward to that happening someday, by the way, Franz. I think you would blend in nicely here with all the roadsters.
That one is, it reminds me that there is nothing truly new in this world.
Good point. Yes. And while we're at throwing up crazy pictures, there's another one, Tesla. Let's throw that picture up. And this one, actually, I don't have the whole story here. It's going to be in the Roadster portion. But this is obviously an AI-generated image where somebody used a creative prompt that basically went like this: show me Nikola Tesla with an electric vehicle behind him and some of the old technology mounted on the wall. And that's basically what would render an image like this. What's amazing about this is the picture behind Tesla in the front actually is very close to what has been circulated endlessly about Nikola Tesla. Mm-hmm. But the backstory on this whole concept is that this is a 1931 and I wish I had it here, and I don't, because I have it in the other podcast, 1931 Packard or something like that, which allegedly Nikola Tesla converted to run on microwaves from the sun.
Oh, really?
Yes. And of course, these stories generally sound so implausible that it's kind of, you keep looking for the tongue in cheek angles.
Mm-hmm.
But the way that this story went was, conjecture has it that he actually was able to power a vehicle without batteries and without fuel, and it went for a number of miles. So later on in the Tesla Roadster podcast, I'll have the rest of the information, and I can share with you what the story is.
So literally the world's first solar-powered car.
Yes, running on not light energy, but microwaves, which is below the frequency spectrum of visible light.
Yes.
Interesting. All right, Facebook, Robert North, he says Tesla supercharging and plug is where it's at. The NACS standard, NCAS. Oh, I just got that. North American Charging Standard. NACS. NACS standard.
Brian Silver.
Oops, it went away.
We've already done that. RC Robinson Sand. Volvo chargers are now at Starbucks.
Did not know that.
I did not know that. Volvo is, they've been on the CCS network for a long time. They are moving toward the NACS standard, along with virtually every other automaker at this point.
It's going to make you want to start drinking coffee Sunday mornings with your Volvo.
It just might.
Mm-hmm. All right. We've got a Consumer Reports article. And this one, the headline is Consumer Reports finds that EVs are less reliable than ICE cars. And then they go on to present some statistics. And once I read the statistics in the comments, it looks like this is a very controversial article and maybe half-baked. I think you had some thoughts on this as well.
I definitely have some thoughts on this. First, on Consumer Reports, the tracking metrics, anything that happens to a car that causes somebody to take that car into the dealer for a repair becomes a quote-unquote problem. So my door panel is a little further out than I would like, is a problem. Mm-hmm. And it's no different than, my car won't drive as far as Consumer Reports is concerned. A problem is a problem. Mm-hmm. And if you do that and then you come in a month later and say, yeah, my weather stripping started to come off on my passenger door. Okay, now your car has two problems. And so that's part of it. There's a little bit of an apples to oranges comparison here. You've got car makers who have been in business for anywhere from 3 to 15 years.
Or decades, for that matter.
Versus car makers for the ICE vehicles that have been in
there you go. Yeah.
That have been in business for a minimum of several decades, and in some cases close to 200 years. Mm-hmm. The ICE automakers have had time to develop and refine their processes and their building techniques, and they end up with a better built car in terms of problems. Mm-hmm. That I call it better built in that it's more refined. It has fewer of those door panel issues than the EVs have.
Yeah, mature quality control processes.
Exactly.
Because of years, decades of experience.
Exactly. And yet the other piece of this that we have that this kind of leads into was how 3,800 auto dealers sent their letter to President Biden saying, you got to slow down the EV adoption stuff. And they cited this as part of the reason. EV build quality is just terrible. Mm-hmm. And you know what? For me, that just, that's how I feel.
It's very self-serving. And we all know that the dealers are terrified of this EV revolution because it doesn't look like the manufacturers are going to allow them to be part of it.
Right. The manufacturers are getting a lot of incentives from the federal government to build electric vehicles. Every time an electric vehicle is built, Ford or General Motors or whoever builds it is getting money. Mm-hmm. And that's over and above any rebate that goes to the consumer. And so they're building these vehicles because they know that they can build them for a much lower cost in that sense. The dealers are having to try to contend with that. When interest rates went up, demand went down. Of course. Why would you pay several $100s a month extra to buy the most expensive car on the lot? If the interest rate's gone up, your ability to afford a car has just gone down. You're going to be going for the Geo Metro instead of, the Chevy Silverado extended cab 250 heavy duty truck. And that's what's happening. It's a very basic economic thing. And it's not just the EVs that are sitting on the lots. It's also the ICE vehicles. Inventories are near an all-time high. And the most important note, the dealerships who are writing this, who wrote this letter to Biden, say that they're representing the consumer. Dealerships aren't customers. Dealerships are salespeople. And I think they're just uncomfortable with the change that's going on. Fred Lambert from Electric, I saw a great article from him, and I reference him quite a bit. I like him as a writer. And he even talks about with higher interest rates, vehicle sales have slowed for all vehicles. The inventory of ICE vehicles is near an all-time high. But all of that was conveniently left out of the letter to Biden. All they said was EVs are far less reliable than standard vehicles, so we can't sell them, and people are interested in them, and we're the customer, and you need to slow this down.
Interesting. All right. YouTube, my melt. Elon was influenced, and we're talking about what influenced the Cybertruck, because we've got a Citroen prototype here from the 1980s, was it? That looks a lot like the Cybertruck. But he says Elon was influenced by the Blade Runner movie. I went and watched it and was not surprised by the Cybertruck debut. Blade Runner vehicles are wedge-shaped. Interesting.
Oh, that is true. Very, very true.
The Lamborghinis are also wedge-shaped when you think about it.
Yes, they are.
YouTube, R.C. Robinson's son says the 50 Volvo charging stations at Starbucks stores in Colorado, Utah, Idaho, and Oregon, and Washington recharge any electric car with a CCS1 or CHAdeMO connector.
So those are actually Volvo branded charging stations that I did not know about. That's very interesting. CHAdeMO is also kind of interesting because that is an old and dying technology. You don't see cars with CHAdeMO on their charging capabilities anymore.
And hopefully they'll all go away eventually and we'll have nothing but necks.
Yes. YouTube, my melt. Most car buyers only worry about the monthly payments.
Yeah.
Bingo. And when interest rates go up, your monthly payment goes up, and they say, I have to have a lower monthly payment.
Yeah, exactly. All right. Another headline. Ford plans to cut its F-150 Lightning production by about half in 2024. The actual statistics are, and they're in here somewhere, how many they've been building. The goal is to reduce it to 1,600 units weekly at the Ford's Rouge electric vehicle Dearborn plant. And they were producing 3,200 all-electric pickup trucks per week. Now, what's your take on this? You were mentioning that this might also have some undertones of additional information that might have been left out in an article like this.
Oh, by all means. This is another one where I think we can thank the higher interest rates for softening demand. But while Ford is cutting production in half, and that's the part that makes the news, the part that doesn't make the news is that Ford also announced that they had all-time record high EV sales in the month of November. And so this tells me two things specifically. First, sales of EVs are a smaller percentage of overall sales than they're leading people to believe. They're just small. They're just not selling a lot of EVs yet. And as such, you can make these outsized cuts or gains at the same time. And so demand also isn't rising as quickly as Ford had originally predicted. If you remember when Ford first announced the Ford F-150 Lightning, they said, we're going to be producing 50,000 of these a year by 2024.
And big backlogs.
And
the
then they had the
hiking
huge
prices, right?
Yeah, they had the huge backlogs, and the dealers falling all over themselves to sign up, and so on and so forth. And so Ford's like, well, I think we're going to up this in order to meet projected demand. And so we're going to make 150,000 a year by 2024. Well, much of that projected demand has dissipated or disappeared with rising interest rates and with just the idea that, like the dealer letter, they said, where they said all of the early adopters already have their electric vehicles. And so now we're trying to sell to the people who aren't early adopters, and there just aren't as many of those people yet.
Mm-hmm.
So the demand is not there yet.
Right.
It's a supply-demand issue. And so so I think it's fine that Ford is cutting their production by half. By half is still not a lot. They're still going to make 80,000 vehicles a year starting in 2024.
Mm-hmm.
That's what 1,600 a week turn into.
Mm-hmm. All right. Niels is chiming in. He says, plus dealers don't get the same service that EVs don't need. Good point. Yes.
Yeah, no oil changes or anything like that.
There's no secret that's where dealers make their money in the United States is on service, not on car sales.
Yep.
Nalder 53, monthly payments are irrelevant to me. If my payments are $500 a month or $150 a month, it doesn't matter. A $60,000 car is still a $60,000 car.
I agree with you perfectly. You are in the minority.
We are at a point where we're going to switch over to the Tesla Roadster podcast. We'll be live on the same channel here with a different thumbnail. So for those of you that want to continue to chat with us in about 3 to 5 minutes, we'll be live on the same channel with the Roadster issues. Thank you for joining us.